I had an experience like Jung had, okay? I had a visioning experience, and it happened to me in 1993, before I knew much about what Jung was all about. And um, I didn't know what was happening to me, and it emerged as a novel. I wrote this novel, but it just came to me, and it was very intense, and it was visioning. The heroine of this novel woke me up at 6 o'clock every morning for 8 months, and made me write this novel. Literally, I mean, she was physically there, and I would go to my computer without turning on the lights in the house, very low, and I would put my hands on the keyboard, and this novel wrote itself. Okay, I visioned the entire novel, and it just wrote itself. My conscious mind took no part in it. Okay, well, it scared the crap out of me, honestly, and so I put it in a drawer for 20 years because it does contain erotica in it. Okay, so stuff that came.
Pretty tame stuff now, though.
Well, compared to the things you're worried about, absolutely, right? But nonetheless, there's some intense stuff there, right? And and now I understand that as coming from my shadow side, and it actually came from physical experiences I had in the early 80s. Okay, so everything in that novel I can attest to from my personal experience, either from me or somebody that I know intimately.
Skip, when she came to you to demand that you write the book each day,
Yes.
did she come as the older woman, the mature woman? Or
No,
was
she
the
came as a young woman in a kimono.
And she was always that age.
Yes, and it wasn't like she was holding my hand. It was like I'd be waking up at 6, and it was like she was standing over me, right? And I knew she was leading me to the computer to write, and then I would sit at the computer with even the screen turned down very low, so it wasn't too bright in my own eyes, and I would just vision this thing, and it just went. One of the key issues that Jung addressed was he researched his whole life and basically demonstrated that we're all the same. Okay, in the end, all human beings have the same makeup. Okay? And we're we're only 1.5% different from chimpanzees or something like that.
Let's don't talk about my uncle.
but what Jung did and Campbell did and many people in the 20th century did was to demonstrate that the mythologies of the world are basically identical. The same set of stories that come out of these archetypes, and they come out of the unconscious. And so everybody in the world more or less experienced the same things. And it's all represented in art and writing and statuary everywhere in the world. It's the same. And so that was the key finding. And so then he came down to the idea of meaning, which is Jung believed that in order to have mental health, we need to find a meaning to our lives. So Jung was looking for meaning and asking you to look for meaning, and the process that he ultimately explicated and helped us understand is the individuation process, which is the process of becoming what you were intended to be in this whole universe. Why are you here? Okay, and only you can answer that question. To know, love, and serve the Lord. Well, Jung was into Catholicism. He was the son of a Reformed pastor, but he thought that the Catholic Church had done a lot with archetype and
We
made
won't
it
even go
useful.
there tonight.
Well,
So-
the Catholic
that's
Church-
another night. Right?
The Catholic Church had images,
Mhm.
whereas the Protestant Church was stripped of everything. It was
Right.
So he had a lot more respect for the Catholic Church because he thought that was sort of a built-in therapeutic
Yeah.
confession.
He
Well,
understood
he's trying
that.
to get rid of the transference.
Well, and we're
So he said
trying.
the Jew-
I mean, it's all about the transcendent function, which we can talk about here.
The Jewish faith and the Catholic faith were the easiest for him to get the subject or a patient to take the transference from him and move it to the symbols in those faiths, whereas the Protestant faith was
They didn't have the
much more
rituals and the
difficult.
symbolic.
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So
Well,
the trouble he and Freud had was when they took on a patient, apparently the patient started to see them as
As
their
father
savior,
figure,
so to
yeah.
speak. Yeah, the father.
Or a savior
then-
figure, yes.
Or lover.
Or a lover, yeah.
And that caused a lot of problems, obviously, so he had to sort of shift it.
Yeah.
And he said that the Jews and the Catholics could take that on better.
So I wonder if they're
Change.
more mentally healthy overall, if they have that connection. It's an interesting.
It's a good point.
Well, I mean, it can be healthy. It's just a question of whether it works for you. I mean,
It's all about balance, right?
Yeah.
right.
Everyone's
It's well, Jung introduced relativity into the psychic structure. All right, and we can go back to these fundamental concepts that also Buddhism talks about, which is when you're young, everything is thou shalt not. Right, and, you know, karma. If you do something bad, something bad's going to happen to you, and in compensation for that. And that's how you teach a child. The stove is hot. The child doesn't believe you. He touches the stove. Now the child understands the stove is hot. Understands those words, right? and so your mom can tell you, don't go out with that boy, but you're not going to believe it until you go out and get burned by that
How
boy.
did you know?
He was that boy.
There you go.
More than once. Jung wrote an article called it's either the psychologist or the clergy. You have to, you know, if you have a problem with
Know where to go.
your psyche, you either have to go to a psychotherapist or to confession. Right? And so basically the Catholic Church spontaneously developed what turns out to be psychotherapy in the form of confession. Okay? Over 2,000 years. And
Well, it must have been more
The talking
meaningful in the early days than it was when I experienced it, because when I experienced it, they just listened and they slapped you with a fine.
well, they were still back in that karma day, right?
Fine.
Right. And
Penance.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
and
Say 3 Hail Marys or one of those things.
Right, right.
I was making a joke. I
But
could
you
Right.
understood the slot.
so then the next level beyond that is duality, and understanding that there is duality, and you know that there is sexuality in the world, and if you don't accept that, then everybody's a nerd, and we're just stones, right? And we don't have 7.5 billion people on the planet. You know, they came from somewhere. Morality is by bringing the shadow into consciousness. Then it's not controlling you, right? And so this is a conversation we were having earlier on in this group, and you were pushing me, and I've come to further conclusions about that, which is that Jung's position was that you need to bring these things into consciousness, and then you have to make a moral decision.
But there is no moral.
Hmm?
There is no moral.
Well,
There's not the moral.
Right.
anything.
Well, remember
That's right.
Remember the handout he gave us on rules.
right. There are no rules.
There are no rules.
Right. Everyone has to make their own rules. Okay. And so what Jung was saying was that the Ten Commandments are fakakta, because all those things are relative. You know, thou shalt not
Those are
kill.
for people who have no souls. Basically, is what he said.
Yeah, probably so.
Because
Right.
if you had souls, then you would experience your relationship to God. You wouldn't just have belief in God, and you wouldn't need any stinking rules.
Because you're guided by.
Right.
by
You would be
soul.
Right.
connected. With
Right.
So are you
with your
saying
core.
archetypes then are two different things?
No.
There's no
No.
morality
No.
Jung said
subsumed
that.
into the.
No, they're all
Very
connected.
young. If you experience God, you know God. If you experience yourself, and if you're on your own signal and not somebody listening to somebody else, you don't need belief because you know I
Right.
know what I need to do.
Right.
There's somebody who's sitting there going, what do I do, God? What do I do, God? Where's the 10 Commandments? Where's my books?
Right.
That's a different relationship. That's no relationship.
That's no
You would
relationship.
basically say it's soulless
Yeah.
because you're not.
There's no noumena.
Yeah. There.
Right. There's no noumena. There's no divine sense of it. It's
So there is no moral instinct then.
yes, there is, but this is a great Marine Corps dictum, which is it depends on the situation and the terrain,
And I
right?
would say it's
Which
aesthetic-
is
aesthetic
People that
more than
steal
moral.
for their kids because they're starving. You know what I mean? Like, even though it's saying thou shalt not steal, you know what I mean? If my
Right.
kids were, I don't have kids, but if I did and they were starving, I would do whatever it took.
absolutely
Yeah.
sure you would.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that we all would do such a thing, and there's no doubt that pushed to a certain point, we'd all kill, we'd all do whatever.
Well, I
it
think
took.
it's to the point where you'd rather die than see something happen. Then you certainly made a commitment. But
That's right. Sure, but his point was that you can't rely on societal rules because they're never perfect all the time. You know, there are always situations in which there may be okay, right?
I'm thinking of laws when you say that. I mean, when
Pardon?
slavery at one time was the law, but didn't make it right. I mean, but
That's
how people
right.
Looked at it, well, it's the law, so it's okay. So
And
see how that's not a good way to.
right, and we have people that are advocating going back to slavery now. Okay, no kidding.
Well, that's a constant. I
Well,
came
it's
to
a-
the conclusion that that's a constant in human.
Yeah.
It's a
think
psychic
about
energy.
Yeah, it's not
Dichotomy,
gonna go
it's
away.
a duality.
Like war. It's like
It
war.
is,
It's
it
never gonna
is.
go away.
It never goes away, precisely
Except the need
because
to dominate some
I
sort
mean,
of.
I admit, I used to think, oh, we've gotten rid of slavery. That's gone forever. And then-
Well,
is
and-
the sex trade something
Not
that's
true.
new? I mean, not new, but is it like more? Are we
Yes.
just more. Is there more of it going on now, or are we just more aware of it now?
I think there's way more of it going on because of the internet.
Google. I was a domestic violence sexual assault counselor,
Mhm.
an advocate for last year, but Google Silk Roads.
Yes.
Pardon?
Silk Roads.
Silk Roads?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's really
The
it's a
dark.
strange job. It's like a
Right.
intraweb or whatever that they,
Oh, yeah.
and they go in and they
There's-
recruit.
There's
Where are you talking
women
about?
now.
What country?
Is that on tour?
All over. It's in they find it in the U.S.
Yeah.
All over. And if
They
people-
keep doing Boston all day.
Well,
like
they even have,
Texas and different
remember a few
places.
years back where everybody had these sort of captive house keepers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's another.
Oh, and you see that all the time in places like Saudi Arabia. You know.
Ever since the webcam came out,
Yeah.
you can be your own. Anybody can be a model at home for
Sure.
100,000, and
Right.
that's the key here. It's like, and parents have their kids in high school,
Right.
16, and they don't know the implications of.
Right.
There's so much.
And we haven't educated people
We haven't
well
educated
enough
So
on
how,
how.
that's the whole argument of technology being.
We're certainly going through a transition right now.
It is.
Well, and the whole world is. The whole world is. And some of it has gotten very, very ugly in Eastern Europe. It's just horrible. And
Well, was this people desperate for money?
pardon?
People desperate for money?
Yeah, sure. And then they fall in with these guys, and then they end up getting drugged, and then they lose total control. The women do.
Makes you wonder if it isn't going to sort of cause the whole economic structure to change.
Well,
It's gonna
it-
change the psychic structure, right?
Right, it is changing the psychic structure faster than we're ready for it because people aren't educated properly. I mean, that's why I'm doing this group to get the message out that people have to start thinking psychologically.
What would
Because
be the outcome, as an example, Skip, of this sex slavery and the whole milieu of this in Eastern Europe? What would be the psychic outcome of something like that?
oh God, I have no idea. Because
Well, for who?
yeah, it depends on for whom and so on. You know, for the women that fall into those Eastern European gangs, it is horrific. Okay, it's absolutely horrific. One of my classmates from high school was the head of UNIFEM, which is the UN effort to protect women around the world. She was the head of UNIFEM in both Bosnia and in Afghanistan. And oh man, the things she talked about, you know, you just don't even want to know. But I mean, there've been a couple of movies made of it. I don't remember the names right
They're
off.
going undercover in there, over there.
I'm not
Recently.
talking about
Yeah.
the physical effects. I'm talking about what is the psychic reaction going to generate in a case like that? Could it
Well,
result
I
in
mean, the
war
psychic.
or something?
I mean, no. The psychic reaction causes everything from, you know, the Puritans say, "Oh, we got to go stop this. We got to go in and find all these guys and kill them and save the women," to, you know, people saying, "Well, you know, it doesn't harm much. This stuff is churning all the time and has been." I mean.
So what do you mean exploitation of whoever the disadvantaged? Like who next? The
Well, yeah.
Syrian?
I mean, when I was in Japan, I was responsible for Korea. So, I used to stay in the. I made 20 trips to Korea from Tokyo to handle my business in Seoul, and I would stay in the Latte Hotel there. Well, the Latte Hotel had a big bar. I would say it was about as big as this entire restaurant, and there was there were tables and chairs all through this bar, right? And so when the economy was good, and you could tell when the economy was good, there wouldn't be very many people, just a bunch of old, tired businessmen, grizzled, you know, road warriors in this place. But when the economy was bad, every table would have a girl sitting at it. Every table.
When the economy was bad.
When it was bad. So you could tell,
They needed the money.
right, you could tell exactly how things were in the Korean economy by what was happening in that bar.